Hello, I'm Dave and this is Fiver, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. Now today, as you can probably see, we're right by the sea at Milford on Sea in Hampshire. It's located about 3 miles south of Lymington, just outside of the New Forest boundary. And we're going to be walking a roughly 3.5 mile circular route. We'll start here at the beach and then head west, exploring a few things as we go. And then just before we get to, I think it's Hordle Cliff, we'll head inland, crossing the Danes stream, and then we'll make our way eastwards through the village. We'll check out the church and a few interesting buildings before continuing eastwards to Sturt Pond and back to the beach. Now I'm filming in August. The sun is out, but there's quite a lot of cloud, a little bit of a breeze, but should be perfect conditions for walking. To come along with us. Well, I say we've started by the beach. Hope you can hear me above the waves. I parked my car at the car park here, and from here there are some cracking views over to the Isle of Wight and the Needles, and then further round I can just see the top of Hurst Castle. So there's the Isle of Wight. On the other side, a good view of the Needles today. And then just looking over to the east, there's Hurst Spit, and I can just see the very top of Hurst Castle. Of course, Logan and I did a walk there a couple of years ago. If you haven't seen that video, do check it out. Okay, well, let's kick on with the walk, and we're going to initially go westwards, sort of keeping the sea to our left. Well, your typical quintessential English seaside village has got to have a bowls club. And here it is, founded in 1933. I believe it's got 6 rinks. Now this is an interesting house. It's called the White House, built in 1903 as a summer home, but it became a TB hospital in 1938. It was then requisitioned by the War Office in the Second World War and returned to being a TB hospital after the war until the NHS took over in 1948. It remained a hospital until about 1983. It then fell into disrepair. And in 1999, it was all developed into private homes. An interesting pillbox there. Now, I'm no expert, but I think it might be a type 22. It's hexagonal rather than the sort of similar 24, which is larger. Well, as far as the history of the village is concerned, the name comes from, well, it was originally a Saxon settlement called Melford. Basically a mill with a ford. And later on in the walk we'll pass close by to the site of an 18th century mill that actually stood on the site of a mill that dated back to the Domesday Book. But up until the 20th century the village was basically an agricultural settlement centred around a village green. In 1936 Milford was absorbed into Lymington Borough, only to become a separate parish in 1974. And if you compare the current aerial photo with a map of 1898, you can certainly see the rapid expansion that's taken place, most of it after the Second World War, and then again in the 1960s and 1970s. Now in 1886, a chap called Colonel Cornwallis-West, who lived at Newlands Manor to the north of here, tried to model the village into a fashionable resort similar to Eastbourne. I think that's when the On Sea bit was added to Milford, but I'm not sure. But unfortunately, a lack of capital and an outbreak of typhoid kept potential investors away. Well, forgive me if I do a short reading from King's England, Hampshire, a book written by Arthur Mee in the late 1930s. I'm going to wear my glasses for this. Milford on Sea. It has a noble view across the Solent and sees the sun set on the Isle of Wight, with Hurst Castle in solitary grandeur on the marshes, guarding the seaway up the Solent and lighting it by night. A delightful corner of England is this breezy cliff with its seascape, the wooded valley, and the village trying to look like a little old town. One thing you really notice along here, the number of sort of rocks and boulders that they've put down right by the shoreline. Looks as though they suffer a lot from erosion around these parts. What have we got here? Beware sudden drop. Oh yes, I see what you mean. Oh, some terrific views from up here though, looking out to sea, and there's the Jurassic coast in the very, very far distance. Now just along here on the right, if you look at a 1898 map, it shows a hotel here called the Hotel Victoria, but it must have been demolished some time ago. But there is still a road called Victoria Road. Well, I've just come down to the beach again where there's a little bit of access to it, but I'm not going to carry on along here because the shingle's just a little bit too rough on Fiver's feet. But I love just listening to the waves crashing against the shore there. Well, this is as far west as we're going along the sort of coastline, as it were, just coming up to the outskirts of Hordle Cliff. So now we head inland along Whitby Road to check out the village itself. I've just spotted a little ice cream shop. I think I have to have a little rest stop as it's here. Hello there. Oh, I've got to have a Mr. Whippy ice cream, please.
Yeah. Just a regular?
Yeah.
Would you like a flake with that?
No flake.
£3, please.
Thank you. Oh, look, there's your doggy. Fiver. What's that? Ooh. No?
There you go.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Cheers. Well, you want a lick, do you? Or you want a doggy dip? There you go. This is the little path I was looking for. So I've come down Whitby Road and just off Pless Road. This should take us into a little nature reserve, I think. Well, this is rather pleasant through here. A little sort of wooded section. And I think somewhere along here we should get close to a little river, if I'm reading the map correctly. See how we go. Well, I just enjoyed a little ramble through the wooded section. Didn't quite find that stream, but I think we come across it later on. So come back onto, I think it's Whitby Road again, and then I need to look for another footpath that'll go north off that. Ah, here we go. That's the footpath I was looking for. So we need to head, I think it's downhill here. Ah, at last I found a little stream. It's called Danes Stream. It's quite short, and it used to feed a mill pond to the east of here. Actually flows eventually into Sturt Pond, which we'll see later, and out to sea. It's got a couple of sources to the northwest, one at Ashley and one at Bashley. And I was reading that it got its name from a local legend. The Saxons fought the Danes in a very bloody battle nearby. Oh wow, isn't that quite idyllic? The old mill pond. There was a mill to the east of here. I think it shows as Cumberland Mill on an 1871 map. I'm not sure. But the pond has got a much different shape these days. Love the lilies down below there, looking quite exquisite. Oh, I don't know if you can see this on screen. There's a fairly large fish in there. Can't quite see what it is, but it's got to be 2-3 foot long maybe. Annoying the ducks. Just gone underneath those ducks, and now it's coming back. And you can see its fin poking out of the water there. Oh, what a delightful church. It's the Church of All Saints, and indeed it's the oldest building in the village. The earliest parts date to the 12th century, and it started off as an aisleless nave and small chancel. The south aisle was added around about 1170, and then in the 13th century the church was effectively trebled in size, with a tower, north and south chapel, north aisle and south porch added, and the chancel lengthened. And the tower later had a short recessed spire added. I think it's got 8 bells. And it was granted to Christchurch Priory in 1140, and they owned it up until the dissolution of monasteries, at which point it reverted to the Crown. Queen's College, Oxford, might have owned it up until 1871, but I'm not sure. But I think it's now under the Diocese of Winchester. Now, Arthur Mee had a bit to say about the church. The church, with the unpardonable sin of darkness, is one of the most distinctive of the small churches of Hampshire, with an exquisite 14th century doorway and a unique tower. It started as a wide Norman building and still has 2 arches in the nave and a small doorway and a transept made by its Norman builders. But the greater part of it is the 13th century. We noticed a little stone man playing bagpipes by a window near the porch. The extraordinary tower is 13th century, with a 14th century leaded spire. The tower spreads out near its base into extensions of the aisles, looking rather like a broody hen squatting over her chickens, with her long neck stretched up high, looking out for danger. Round the top are carved heads. Okay, well, we'll have our usual peep inside. It is a huge church, well, for a village. There's some beautiful carvings below the main tower there. Making my way through this quite magnificent nave, beautiful arches either side, and there on the right is the organ, and then making my way towards the chancel, there's the wooden pulpit on the left, and then into the chancel itself. Beautiful stained glass window above the altar, and some exquisite altar itself. Well, just opposite the church, the other side of the road, is Milford House. Some sources say it dates to 1680 and some say it's built in 1730, but it was remodelled in the late 18th century, and it became a hotel in 1927 but closed in 1972, and it's all now split into houses, flats and apartments. Well, this is the village green of Milford on Sea, which I believe is the start of the 60-mile long distance path known as the Solent Way, which goes all the way to Emsworth in Hampshire. And if you look at a 1871 map, there was once an old smithy and an animal pound here. And indeed, there is a little shop there called the Old Smithy today. Now, this is an interesting pub, the Red Lion, which well, dates to the late 18th century, early 19th century. For a while it was called the Lazy Lion Pub, and then it closed in 2024, but I think it's recently reopened back under the old name of the Red Lion. And this is the Smugglers Inn, sort of late 18th, early 19th century, originally built as a customs and excise office before being turned into a pub or coaching inn. And it was called the Crown originally, I think. It changed its name to the Smugglers Inn about 40 odd years ago. And there's the Methodist Church. The present building dates from 1961, but a Methodist church was formed in the village in 1911 behind number 22 High Street before they moved here. And they'd broken away from the existing Baptist church that had been established in the village in 1816. Now, I think this building here is the old White Horse Inn, which was a late 18th century coaching inn that possibly incorporated the King's Arms that stood on the site in 1720, but now closed and looks like a residential. At least I think that's the building. It's where it should be on an old map. What an interesting little place Milford on Sea is. Okay, well, we're now going to head south back to the shore again, following Dane Stream. I'm eventually going to get to Sturt Pond. What's this say? Sturt Pond Nature Reserve, dogs under control, ta-ti-ta-ti-ta. This path may be underwater during some tidal conditions. Well, I think we're going to be okay today. So, well, looking at the map, this is Sturt Pond, which you can see more vegetation than water. Might be different in the winter, I don't know. Oh, what a lovely place for a bench looking out over Sturt Pond under that quite splendid conifer. Bet you that tree could tell a few stories. It's bending to one side, so you can guess which way the wind comes from around these parts. Aha, now this is Sturt Pond. Definitely a fairly big expanse of water, popular with birds, as you can see. Well, I was saying there'd be no problems getting across. We could just about get across on this higher ground, but there's the path round there and we're just about to rejoin it. That was a bit of fun. Some young lads been crabbing by the looks of things. Little critters down there. Well, we're nearly at the end of our walk now. The car park is just beyond this building here, which is the Lighthouse Restaurant. Very much Art Deco. Although interesting, it's not on a 1961 map. I think it was previously known as the Marine Cafe. Anyway, seeing as it's just after 1 o'clock, time for a spot of lunch. Well, right next to the Lighthouse Restaurant is a bird hide looking out over to Sturt Pond. So let's see if we can identify any birds. It's a great position, that's for sure. I'm pretty sure that's an egret out there in the centre having a good feed. I'll have to get my zoom camera. Plenty of swans out in the on the pond itself. What a smashing place if you're a great follower of birds to just sit here and watch. Well folks, we've come to the end of our walk. We thought we'd do the end scene here at the Lighthouse Restaurant. I've just ordered my fish finger sandwich. We hope you enjoyed the walk today. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do check out our Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. So until we meet again, thanks for watching and cheerio. Good boy.